Cardi B is a prototype. Prototype, meaning she's the first of her kind, right? And she set off a generation. There are very few rappers, I would say, that were prototypes. And I'm very few. The prototypes in hip hop to me were N.W.A, Tupac, Lil Wayne, and now Cardi B. And I'm going to explain why Cardi B and why those guys are prototypes. And maybe even Run-DMC. I would say, let's start with Run-DMC. Run-DMC was a prototype, but because before Run-DMC, for those of you that are old enough to know hip hop, the history of hip hop, rappers only put out singles. Rappers did not put out albums. They just put out singles. And they made songs that were just for the parties. They made one song like Rapper's Delight, right? These Are the Breaks by Curtis Blow. And these songs were meant to play at parties, and that's it. Good times, right? I mean, the Sugar Hill Gang, of course, Rapper's Delight. But Run-DMC decided to incorporate rock and roll into hip hop. And when they hit it big with Walk This Way, they set off a trend. All of a sudden, all rappers now, record labels wanted to sign rappers to create albums. And a lot of them wanted to hook up with rock artists to kind of duplicate the success of Walk This Way. Now we move on to Tupac. Actually, I'm moving too fast. Now I'm going to move on to N.W.A. Why N.W.A was a prototype. Before N.W.A, for those of you that are old enough to know, the N-word was off limits. It was forbidden. It was something that in the black community, it was something that was not said. It was looked down. You were frowned upon for using the N-word. During that time, most rap artists were very progressive, right? You had Public Enemy, you had Boogie Down Productions, KRS-One, Tribe Called Quest. You had a lot of rap artists that were talking about changing the establishment, but they didn't have a remedy for it. You know, Public Enemy had Fight the Power, but nowhere in Fight the Power could you find them telling you how. They just said fight the powers that be, that's it. Bring the noise, but they never had a solution. They just said fight it, but no solution. N.W.A came along and they just interrupted everything. They had F the Police. Nothing in the world ever prepared anyone for a song that heavy. F the Police. And they spoke from the perspective of being a young black teenager in America and being harassed by police. Sometimes you're just going about your business and being patted down, being searched. Right? So N.W.A talked about that, and it just blew the lid off everything. Right after right after that song came out, they got a letter from the FBI advising them not to use that song, not to ever sing that song live or they'll get arrested. After N.W.A's success, that was the birth of gangsta rap. That set off the N-word. Now it's commonly used, the N-I-G-G-A. N-I-G-G-A. N.W.A spelled it that way first. That was the name of their group. N-words with attitudes. Niggas with attitudes. We're adults here, right? That song set it off, right? That the name of their group. After N.W.A, the N-word was off. All bets were off. It became a part of culture. That word became a part of black culture, American culture. I lived in Astoria for a long time, and I can tell you, most of the Italians, the Greeks, and the Irish all use the N-word, and they call themselves the N-word. Like they just clung to they took the N-word and turned it into what we would call cool and acceptable because they spelled it different. They were a prototype because there was no one like them before that, and they started a generation. They created a generation. Next, we'll talk about Tupac. Why Tupac is a prototype? Because Tupac took the Mexican gang culture and merged it with hip hop with his appearance. If you look at Tupac wore the bandana, the bald head, the tattoos. He was the first rapper to wear tattoos, to popularize tattoos. Tupac, right? So when Tupac came along, he had Thug Life tatted on his chest, and he wore the gang rag, the white tees. He looked like a Mexican gangbanger. And he brought that to hip hop. After Tupac, you had DMX, you had No Limit, you had a whole wave of artists that came out that were inspired by his look. He was a prototype. He was the first to do that. He inspired a generation. After Tupac, and there were plenty of popular rappers, but we're talking about prototypes, if you understand what I'm saying. Next came Lil Wayne. What Lil Wayne did was, Lil Wayne took skateboard grunge culture and married it into hip hop. Now, if you look at Nirvana, you look at all the artists back then, Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? That's how all the rock artists, the grunge artists dressed that way. Lil Wayne dreaded his hair, so it looked like long hair, just like a rock artist, and he wore the plaids. He expanded on the tattoo looks, the look, and the piercing. So he married goth, grunge, skateboard culture into hip hop. And after him, now you have Migos, you have all these rap artists, 2 Chainz, all of them are coming out, picking up on the trend that Wayne started, the culture that Wayne, the house that Wayne built. Cardi B, what's different about her than Nicki Minaj, Lil Kim, and all the rest of them, right? Because Lil Kim, Trina, Foxy Brown, those were all female rap artists that talked about sex, right? They all talked about sex. They all talked about screwing a guy to get the bills paid, right? There's nothing new there. They all did it. Same thing with Nicki Minaj, right? Nicki Minaj was really big. She kind of warmed the pot. She kind of warmed the public up to for Cardi B to come along. So I'll give her props. Nicki Minaj, it was like a good 10 years between Lil Kim's generation and Nicki Minaj's generation. But Nicki Minaj did not create a culture. She did not introduce the world to a new culture. Cardi B did that. How did Cardi B did that? Cardi B took the stripper lifestyle, the ideology of a stripper, and put that on wax, put that to music. And that's what made her different from all the rest of them. Now you go on Instagram, you see Cardi gave birth to a culture. She's a prototype. Good example of her power, the magnetism or the level of Cardi's power is, and I admire people that are charismatic, people that have the ability to influence others, to make people just start to follow them and do what they do. Even if what they're doing is wrong, people still follow what they do. What she did was, once she introduced that popularized the stripper culture, now that gave birth to someone like Megan Thee Stallion, that generation. But why Cardi B is greater than Megan Thee Stallion is, when you listen to WAP was supposed to be Megan's song that she put Cardi on. But what happened? Slowly Megan is off the table and all eyes are back on Cardi, right? WAP did more for Cardi than it did for Megan. Megan Thee Stallion may have signed her own death certificate. And I mean, as far as her popularity right now, I think she signed her own death certificate by making that song with Cardi, because Cardi now is hot all over again. And with the public is slowly like, Megan who? Right? That's the magnetism. That's the weight. That's the influence that Cardi has. That now stripper culture is the norm. If you want to see her children, go on Instagram. And when I say children, I don't mean the children that she gave birth to. I mean the children, the generation of people that she inspired to follow her. You just go on Instagram and you can see it's loaded with thoughts. Right? So that's why I say Cardi B is a prototype. Don't forget to like this video, share, and subscribe. Thank you.